In a stunning move to clean up the FDA, RFK fired 17 FDA officials. There's the 17 number again. We seem to be seeing it more often these days. So, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., as HHS Secretary, retired all 17 members of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention's Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices, or ACIP, who usually serve 4-year terms. The cuts were made due to conflicts of interest, and a complete wholesale removal of the entire panel has never before occurred. Of course, many are saying that the panel of experts who advise the CDC on vaccine recommendations are independent, but in my experience, this couldn't be further from the truth. I have previously explained how industry experts were often sitting on approval hearings for drug applications submitted by their current or past employers. This is the way the FDA is designed. The approval experts all have experience working with drug manufacturers and hope to continue to work with Big Pharma. I saw this up close during my days in government, and I will link the video at the end for you. The panel has not been eliminated, just the sitting members. Kennedy stated that new members were currently under consideration and that the ACIP would convene its next scheduled meeting from June 25 to 27, 2025 in Atlanta to discuss vaccines for COVID-19, flu, RSV, and other diseases. As I've previously reported, Kennedy claimed the panel was plagued with persistent conflicts of interest and acted as a rubber stamp for pharmaceutical industry agendas. I can confirm that. He cited a 2009 HHS Inspector General report alleging that 97% of ACIP members had omissions in disclosure forms. Kennedy reported that many members had received substantial funding from pharmaceutical companies and that a clean sweep was necessary to reestablish public confidence in vaccine science and ensure unbiased science through a transparent process. I've got no problem with a clean sweep. How about you? Can you deal with a delay in new vaccine development? Please hit the like button, tell me what you think in the comments, and subscribe to one of the best and fastest growing new channels on YouTube. It's an amazing community of people. Also, I have new ways that you can support the channel, including monthly memberships, the shop button, one-time super thanks tips under the 3 dots below the video, and my newest creation, a quick reference book for various foods and herbs that help in health conditions that you might be experiencing. RFK described the panel as lacking transparency and being overly aligned with industry incentives, claiming that the new members chosen would prioritize evidence-based medicine. Kennedy noted that all 17 members were appointed under the Biden administration, with 13 named in 2024 and 8 last-minute appointments in January 2025, just before Trump's inauguration. But don't take my word for it. I have linked the ACIP conflict of interest disclosures in the description of the video so you can see for yourself. Dr. Yvonne, also known as Bonnie Maldonado, stated that she had no conflict of interest, but she did mention that she previously served on the Data and Safety Monitoring Board related to Pfizer meningococcal vaccine trials. She also worked on a website for Pfizer's pediatric COVID-19 and maternal RSV vaccines, as well as for AstraZeneca varicella-zoster vaccine trials. Actually, she was the Stanford principal investigator for Pfizer's RSV and COVID-19 vaccine trials, and also for adult varicella vaccine trials. Plus, she was on the Vaccine Approval Board. Dr. Sharon Frey, another panel member, was the site principal investigator at St. Louis University for the Moderna and Janssen SARS-CoV-2 vaccine trials in adults. In fact, Dr. Frey has been the principal investigator on several COVID-19 vaccine trials. And Dr. Wilbur Chen reported that he was involved in clinical studies of COVID vaccines until October 2020. Now I am going to share my observations regarding the industry that I worked within. The rationale for using people in the pharmaceutical industry is because, well, they have the most expertise in the area. But honestly, I disagree. Healthcare and the decision whether to vaccinate or take any drug is impacted by many, many different factors. Let me give you an example. When my dad had lymphoma, we took him to Mayo Clinic in Jacksonville, where a team of different specialists was assembled to handle his case. I know that in most cases you might be referred to your cardiologist for an assessment before cancer surgery. This has become rather routine, but honestly, I see it like it's communicated by text. At Mayo, though, the members of my dad's team actually spoke to each other face to face and all sat together at a table to discuss the safest way to proceed. A principal investigator, or PI, in an FDA trial is the individual responsible for the oversight of a clinical trial at a particular location. They aren't experts in drug design or manufacturing. They are generally a physicians, though it is not required. Nurses, PhDs, and other professionals can serve as principal investigators as long as they are properly supervised. They probably have no specific expertise in myocarditis or even heart disease or pediatrics or even geriatrics. Generally, there are multi-site trials where various clinical trial sites participate in human trials, and they operate according to stringent parameters and protocols designed by guess who? Anybody? You got it. The sponsor, which is generally the drug manufacturer, also known as Big Pharma. Now that you know how it works, there's a couple of things to consider when it comes to the COVID-19 vaccines. Several people on the panel were principal investigators for Pfizer's and Moderna's COVID-19 vaccines. This means that these people were the front line in receiving or knowing about any heart abnormalities or other maladies which occurred during trials. In fact, some participants in trials did report chest pain, palpitations, or other general symptoms prior to the emergency approval. During emergency use, which in my opinion was premature, there were many more cases, specifically myocarditis and pericarditis in young males ages 16 to 30. The risk was officially deemed rare, but both Pfizer and Moderna were required to update warning labels, and the vaccines were left on the market. The VAERS database is not all cases because it is self-reported events, but VAERS received over 20,000 reports of myocarditis and pericarditis between both the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines, with Pfizer occurrences being about twice that of Moderna. For some reason, however, CDC only confirmed and recognizes about 4,500 of those reports, which is still significant when you consider that most of those occurred in young males with onset within a few days of vaccination. So the panel contained investigators that were the first to see these patients, and they were either negligent or clueless if they didn't report this concern to the panel. I'm not suggesting anything, but if you or someone you know were harmed and looking for responsibility, you should look under every rock. So RFK is replacing them all and will hopefully design a more effective review process which requires enhanced oversight by the CDC director. So we've got 17 unemployed people who were involved in one way or another with the whole COVID-19 vaccine thing. Kennedy is bringing in fresh blood, and we won't be seeing such irresponsible, negligent, or potentially criminal handling of vaccines. We're going in the right direction, guys. This is a huge deviation from regulatory norms in a megastructure that needs to be nearly dismantled and rebuilt. The mainstream news doesn't want you to know these things, which can bring down your vibration with frustration and even anger as you feel like you've been let down or things aren't happening quick enough. But the fact is that we are still fighting this war to remove control from the corporate mega complex. So until next time, things are looking up more and more each day, and always remember that things aren't always as they appear.